Good morning. I'm Carl Middleton, and I have the good fortune of being the warm-up act for the annual meeting. Our board president asked me to not put you asleep, please. I think, considering my age, should have been more concerned about me falling asleep during the sermon rather than putting you to sleep. I'm going to share a little story with you about my past Friday morning. We were having an ST meeting at our apartment Friday morning at 9 o'clock, and I had my homily to work on, so I drove down to our local Starbucks, walked in the door, and along the wall were 6 tables for 2. 5 of them were occupied. If you've been to a Starbucks in the morning, you know who was sitting in those chairs. There were a bunch of people with computers, a couple with headphones, all working away. There was 1 empty table. I grabbed the table, grabbed my coffee, sat down with my index cards. There were a lot more than this, and my notebook, and started to work. In a few minutes, the young lady sitting next to me took her headphones off and looked over. I looked over at her and said, "Good morning." She looked back and said, "Good morning" to me. I said, "Looks like you're working hard." And she looked back to me and said, "Are you working?" It gets better. I said, "Yes." And she paused for a moment and with a really sweet smile on her face said, "How quaint." Now, you're probably wondering what that has to do with my homily this morning, but I'll get there. 2 years ago, almost exactly, I gave a homily, and the homily was on multi-generational congregation. I had walked down the hall a couple of weeks in a row, passing by the RE room, and had noticed the deafening silence on my way to the sanctuary, and thought, that's not good. When I walked into the sanctuary, I looked around and I saw a community of people that I had come to care about and feel a warmth toward, like no community I've ever belonged to in my life. A great bunch of people who really cared about the world and the people in it. I looked over here and there was somebody who had, and a remarkable group of people, somebody who had run 50 marathons. And sitting over there, there was somebody who had ridden a bicycle from Boston to Seattle. We had a freedom rider who had ridden a bus into the teeth of the dragon in Alabama in the early 60s. Absolutely amazing wealth of individuals. But anyone walking into that sanctuary wouldn't have known that. They would have looked around and they might have said, "How quaint." No children, few young people. That day, Jerry Winsett gave a pretty stirring sermon on the decisions that were facing us. If you think back to 2 years ago, we were at a very interesting place. We're about to embark on a very new journey. We had lost our permanent pastor. We had a new interim person at that time. There was a lot that we were going to have to look ahead to. I decided that the following week, when I was going to do my homily, that I would do it on a multi-generational congregation. And there was a real personal interest there. My son and daughter-in-law and my grandson and teeny tiny, probably about the size of Toby, granddaughter, had started coming to church. And I really was hoping that this could be a spiritual community that they would grow up in. I say it was personal on that level, but there was an even larger issue, and that was that I believe in this community and I believe in what it stands for. The values that Unitarian Universalist espouses are values that we need more probably in the world today than we ever have before. We need to be sending kids out with the principles that we espouse. There's certainly a lot of other principles that kids are learning that aren't going to be real helpful for our future. Kathy, Reverend Kathy, our Reverend Kathy Hurd, who was such a gift to us as an interim, had at Christmas time asked us to make little cards with wishes on them, wishes for the future of our community. And Betsy Randall David kindly shared with me one of the wishes that was placed on that tree. It reads, "Community for our children." Fast forward to today. How many of you have walked past the RE room in the last few months? If you're walking past following the services, you're probably dodging little people running around. If somebody's bumping into your knees, it's a good chance she's related to me. The room is alive, and with it the congregation has become more vital and alive. Those children didn't arrive here by themselves either. They weren't getting bussed in. They arrived here with parents who have started to join us. And suddenly, this congregation is looking different. It's looking more vital. Our age demographic is coming down. And if you listen to the reading today, okay, that whole idea of bequeathing to that next generation, you can't bequeath without a next generation there with you. And we've started to get that. We have a lot of work to do yet. I'm not saying by any means that we've evolved into a perfect community, but we've begun to go down a new pathway, and it's a healthy pathway. Okay. I tried to kind of think of what happened all of a sudden. One thing clearly happened. The nerds happened. Okay. The not yet retired division. Took me a long time to figure out what that nerds thing meant. Okay. They started to come together as an entity. They started to meet together as an entity. I spoke to a couple of people. My buddy Robin, who read with me this morning, said, you know, social media became a really big thing. Started to put us out there and say to young people, with young children, you know what, we might be a place you want to come to. And they've started to come. Our RE room with Jasmine and Amelia, just incredible job that they do down there. We are now filled with volunteers working in the room. And I don't think we can overstate how big a difference the Reverend Kelly Rivers has meant. They like you, Kelly. Reverend Kelly, I'm sorry. Okay. We have a choir director who is actually cool. We had a past president, okay, who was a charter nerd and who did an incredible job of leading us. Okay. We had a pianist that drops in once a month, who's kind of grown up in this community, but who comes back to share his own compositions with us. And probably most exciting of all, in 2 months, we're going to have a pastoral team, a new pastor and an associate pastor, both with families and kids who are going to be taking us on this next leg of our journey. We've come a long way, and we've got a long way to go. and we know it, okay? We're never complete. Almost 6 decades ago, a small group of searchers began meeting in a house in Wilmington to forge a future centered on a spiritual journey they decided to take together. Rooted in principles they strongly believed in, as they gathered, they looked in each other's eyes and thought, this is us. There was no Dobkin Hall, there was no sanctuary, no pothole-riddled parking lot to complain about. Just a group of principles and a dream. There was no we can't in that room. These were people that believed in what they were doing. We are inheritors of that group of people. We owe it to the next group of people to bequeath to them what we bring here today. We carry that dream. This is us. In 2 months, when a whole new leg of that journey begins, just like that small group of voyagers, we will do what we need to do while we're here to bequeath a future home to those that follow us. Who knows what that phone will look like? Who knows what iteration will have appeared? Those people that met in that house decades ago, many of whom, most of whom probably don't have the capacity to be here anymore, would have been knocked over by what we bring here on every Sunday. They believed in it, and it's happened and continues to happen. So that small group of voyagers, that's us. We're going to do it, what we need to do while we're here, so that decades from now, when they gather, with clasped hands raised in shalom, and look at each other, they'll be able to say, this is us. Thank you.